Hello, my name is Margaret Macpherson. I'm a Canadian writer published with the Independent Canadian Press. And I have been working in this industry for 25 years. I call it laboring in obscurity. But I'm really honored to be here. This is my newest title. It's my ninth book. It's called Tilting Towards Joy. And it's a collection of interconnected short stories where you'll meet a character when she's younger and then meet her again in a totally different story with a little bit more perspective of an older woman. The stories are about connection, about Canadians abroad. It's based on a couple moving to Europe for a house swap and all the different people, both foreigners and old friends who come into their orbit. It's a really important story because I think it is told through the Canadian sensibility. And I think it's important now, especially with where elbows up is more than a hockey term, that we assert our Canadianness. And I'm really happy to read from this story. I'm in Ontario right now in central Canada. This is the Great Mississippi here. Quebec is in the background. And I'm going to read you a story called Casting, which is about a middle-aged woman, recently divorced, who meets a man, meets the love of her life. But just before that, she's reminiscing about her own childhood. This is Casting from Tilting Towards Joy. Closing her eyes, Carol remembered a huge fish she had caught once as a teenager. She had been casting off the rocky shores of one of the deep lakes up north outside of town. That was a full year after her 10-year-old neighbor Robert Cross had drowned in that same lake. She must have been thinking of Robert, who one moment played road hockey with them on the gravel outside their shared street, and the next moment was gone, sucked underwater, while his twin sisters clung to that flipped rubber raft and cried for help. When the fish struck her line, Carol thought she had snagged Robert. She convinced herself it was his drowned, perfectly preserved, dead boy body she would drag onto the shore. Instead, it was a massive lake trout, very much alive at the end of a rod. While her brothers and fathers hooted and clapped, all she could feel was relief, coupled with the terrible sorrow that the massive fish should die on the rocks. She watched its gills opening and closing as though chiding her for cavalierly drawing it out of the depths. She didn't like fish. She didn't like fishing, had never really wanted to catch anything, yet there it was, come to her as some guilt-induced sacrifice. As her brothers and Jessica mercifully cracked the great trout behind the head and broke its spine, she remembers the air, sputtering, one last wheeze through the slit skin flap of the hapless trout. It is the gill through which we are all breathing, she thought. It was then she knew Robert really was dead, and she wept bitter tears and refused comfort from her family, who busied themselves with a fire and ate buttered, fried fish from a cast-iron pan there on the trembling lake shore. Casting from Tilting Towards Joy.